All right, we're rolling. Hello, friends. My name is Dave Miller.
And I'm Mal Spain. And we're your fuck buddies.
We are a dating and sex advice podcast where we take your sticky, sexy situations and we turn them into sexy, sticky situations.
Simply put, we find questions, usually online or from our wonderful listeners, but this week from Tickle.life, and we answer them on the topics of sex and dating.
That's right. We are joined by a lovely representative from Tickle.life, our friends over at the site. We've talked about them before. We've been friends with them for a while. But today we're joined with Angel.
Hello.
Welcome.
Yes. Hi. I'm really excited to be here.
Hell yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am the COO of Tickle.life, and I am a board certified sex educator. I've been teaching sex ed to adults for about 10 years. I am all but thesis on a master's degree in psychology. I actually am turning in the first full draft of my thesis this month, so I can defend this semester. Yeah, thank you. I'm a little nervous to accept any congratulations just yet until the words are on the page, but I just don't want to jinx myself. But yeah,
I take it back.
No, thank you. Yes, in a month, ask me how it went, and then you can congratulate me.
4 weeks from now, expect that message.
Bingo! I'm in. I'll look forward to it. Yeah. So that's kind of my situation. That's a little bit about me.
Oh yeah, far more qualified than us. I love it.
I was literally about to say we're just gonna call it in this episode. We're just gonna
walk off. You take it from here. We'll be back at the end.
I am like so excited. I love your show. I've been listening for a while. My partner and I both listen, and I'm like really excited to be doing this, and I'm looking forward to kind of like riffing with you guys. And so yeah, I am. Please don't leave because I'm really looking forward to the dynamic.
Yeah, no, thanks again for coming out, and yeah, we're excited too.
Before we jump right into the questions, do you want to talk a little bit for the people who aren't super familiar with Tickle, what Tickle is all about?
Yeah. So Tickle.life is a global sexual wellness discovery platform. So what that means is we are like your one-stop shop for answers to your questions about sex and relationships. So, when you're done listening to the Fuck Buddies and you want to hear more good content on sex and dating and relationships and all of that, head over to Tickle.life and we can continue to fill in the gaps and answer your questions. We have a really insanely robust blog. We have we just launched a whole fleet of podcasts. We have the largest listing of curated sex positive podcasts anywhere. We do multimedia, multinational workshops. We are getting ready to launch a bunch of courses. So we have a ton of content. I'm sure I'm going to be forgetting things. We're also getting ready to launch a marketplace where people will be able to visit medical and mental health professionals that are sex positive. So let's say that you're, reading an article on something and maybe you're reading an article on STIs and it's starting to sound kind of familiar to you and you're going, oh no. And you want to check out more about that. You can book an appointment with a doctor who can do a telehealth visit with you, and all of that can happen right through the site. So that's kind of what we're setting up right now. And so there's lots of things to look forward to with Tickle and with Tickle.life and like what we're doing. And so just head over and sign up for the newsletter and you'll get updates as we launch new things. It's a startup, so we're constantly launching new things all the time. But I would say that the thing I am the most excited about right now is we did just launch like a huge portfolio of original content podcasts, including one that I am doing with my husband. We're doing a podcast called Sex Ed Speakeasy where we get drunk and talk about the history of sex. So yeah, check us out.
I'll definitely be checking that out.
Awesome.
Yeah,
you guys
Tickle's
should
great.
Come drink with us sometime.
We're down.
Yeah, you don't have to ask us twice.
Yeah. Yeah, Tickle is awesome. We've definitely linked a few articles and we've talked about them a bunch. And like when you say one-stop shop, it's not an exaggeration. There's like everything on there. So definitely worth checking out. And we're also on there. And soon we'll have an advice column on there. So
that's right.
Little spoiler warning.
I know. Yeah. And we can talk about that more at the end. I'm very excited about the upcoming column.
Yeah. So are we.
So this week, we usually source our questions from our listeners and various online resources such as Reddit, and more dubious sources at times. But this week, Tickle.life has provided us with a list of questions. I don't know. Do you know where this has come from specifically?
I know that some of it was questions that people had brought to us. Some of it was questions that the team sourced. So I was not part of the sourcing of the questions. I saw them once a while ago. I was told that they were added to, so I'll actually get to be surprised. So I don't know the origins of all of the questions, but I do know that the team had been sourcing them for like quite a while. So I'm excited to see what we've got.
It's definitely an eclectic bunch.
It's all over the place.
You love that.
There are some questions that, yeah, they get a little wild.
Yes,
but we're gonna softball, I think, and I think we're gonna start with, it's the first question on the list, and I think it's a great way to introduce kind of what we're in for. And the question is: suddenly, there's a gender swap in the world. All boys become girls, and the same with the opposite. How do you think the world would handle it?
I'm gonna let you guys go first.
And as guest, we always get to make you go first, so no pressure.
Okay, I'll go first. How do I think the world would handle it? Honestly, I think the world would be fine. I think people are would be surprised at how not rigidly they adhere to gender roles, even when they think they do. I think that our world is really set up for gender diversity in better and better ways all the time. And I think that I think the first thing is that, especially if we're talking about cisgender folks, so folks who their gender is the same as their sex assigned at birth, I think that the first thing that everybody would do is like check out their new genitals, right? Like that's the whole thing.
100%.
Like
There's going to be like a month maybe of like no activity while everyone just masturbates
and like, yes, tons of
extended amount of time.
But I kind of think once we get past our new junk, like I really think that'll be like the biggest transition, and then we're just gonna like live our lives the way we've been living them. So I don't really see it. I mean, I think I think gender is a really cool part of people's personalities, and I think that it makes a difference in sort of how we move through the world. And I think we might all understand each other a lot better if we got to sort of spend some time kind of coexisting in each other's spaces. But I don't think it would be like, I don't think, again, outside of, like you said, the month that we would all spend in our private spaces diddling ourselves. Like, yes. I think that aside from that, I think we'd be right back to just being workaholics like we are.
It's interesting that you both assumed this was a permanent swap, because I thought this was more of a Freaky Friday, you're there until you learn the lesson kind of situation.
Well, you know what? I think a few people would have a really hard time with it, and I wouldn't have thought this before we started the podcast, but the amount of like questions we've gotten in about like men not like wiping their butts or like cleaning down there because they're worried that it's seen as like a feminine thing to like touch their butts and shit like that. The amount of times we've seen that through questions over the last 2 years, I think a lot of men would have a really hard time being a woman. I'm not sure a lot of women would have as hard of a time being a man.
Well,
but I do think people would get over that eventually. But I think initially there would be some panic because apparently that's a thing ingrained in people.
Like the hygiene thing. Well, except that women do get access and like get permission to be better at hygiene. And so it might not, if anything, these dudes who are like scared to clean their bodies because they're worried about whatever toxic nonsense they're worried about, I think that it might be like secretly liberating. Like, oh, I get to like use the good soap now and nobody's going to like call me a fluffer because I am a girl or whatever, you know? And so I think that it might be like
moisturized for the first time ever.
Yeah. I think it might open a lot of doors for people in the hygiene department. So maybe it would be weird at first, and then it would be like, oh, this shampoo smells great. I'm gonna use it for the first time. So
now, do you think there would be a switch of, do you think the women who are now men would try to impose the bullshit that men have imposed on women? Like, do you think the new men would like now embrace catcalling?
Like, would we
as
suddenly
a
start making more money? I think we would like love the pay bump. And do I? No, I mean, some would. Yeah, I think
And
some would
you know what?
because,
I couldn't really blame the ones that do either. You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
it's like you've been subject to something for so long, you could forgive them for being like, you know what, fuck it, it's my turn.
Yeah, I think you've got, again, I think that it would be the same like broad brush of people we currently have. Some people would handle it really well, and some people would be super jerks about it, and some people would like have a total heyday, and like that's how people live their lives now. And so the same people who are jerks in their current gender would just be jerks in their new gender, and the same people who are like, I think that the other things about people's personality, so like I do, so this is probably not like as fun of an answer, but I do like personality science research.
Okay.
And there are a lot of things about our personalities that are a lot more compelling for most people than their gender. And so that's kind of why I think maybe my answer is a little more boring. I just think that, like, again, assuming that it wasn't like a Freaky Friday thing where it went back, like we just woke up. If we just woke up and we just were in perpetuity going to be the opposite gender, I think that once people sort of got used to it, we'd just sort of fall into the things in our situations that were a little bit more compelling, like our financial pressure and parenting and, you know, all the things that like make up our personalities in addition to our genders. And so I just see people like sort of leveling out to like a new normal.
You know what I think would change drastically and quickly? Laws in Texas, for example.
Yes.
All of a sudden, a lot of really old politicians would be like, actually, I take that back.
Actually.
And I take that back. And funny this change of heart. Now that fucking affects me.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because structurally and in terms of power dynamic, nothing would really change other than like what you said when laws are specifically governing women's bodies. But things like CEOs would now be predominantly women. But would like, do you think there'd be a shift of then, like, with the pay gap sort of title pool wave onto the women's side? Because like women who were once men are still the people who are in power. Like there would be a gender switch in terms of power, but not in structure, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like much like today, all the people in power would still fight to keep themselves in power, so that probably wouldn't change much.
I guess I just feel like this question, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna be like a wet blanket here. I just feel like this question like leaves a lot of like do we mean that everybody just switches genitals, or do we mean that like gender identities also switch? Like
Yeah.
is that what we mean? Like, so like what about like the huge amount of people that are gender diverse, like where does their gender go? Like, do they just stay in the same spaces? Are they still asking the same questions and like advocating for the same issues, but now everyone around them is like swapped? Does this only impact cisgender people? Like, I think I need more information to be able to like imagine this society.
Yeah. Also,
I mean, I think the people outside of the gender binary become our new deities. I think is
well,
sort
I'm
of
happy to take up that. I'm happy to take up that space. So,
but also like that's kind of my problem with the question as well. Is like it assumes a binary almost because it just says boys become girls and same with the opposite. It's like cool, but what about everybody else?
Yeah,
you know.
Well, I'm non-binary, so my first thought was like not to make it all about me, but like I go there very quickly because I think about like
of course,
what do you do when it's not. But the other thing I thought of was like, let's say it is a 1-to-1, and let's say that like let's just put the like gender binary question aside for a second, like, and let's just say that boys become girls, girls become boys is a straightforward question. Those same people were still socialized in their other genders up to that point, right? Like, do you lose that memory, or do you suddenly have the history of socialization of your new gender? Do you know what I mean? Like,
exactly. There's too many permutations.
Yeah.
Also, I guess it's not really sex and dating advice because it's a wild hypothetical, but we start at the start of the list.
Interesting. It's an interesting conundrum, and it does give us a lot of opportunity to talk about important things. So,
yeah, I guess like it's always a good exercise to be able to like imagine yourself in other people's shoes, and like this is a chance to do that a little bit, I think.
Before we move on, let's just say tomorrow you wake up and there's a new set of there's another set of genitals that you don't currently have. Other than masturbating and playing with them, what's the first thing you do?
See either what it fits into or what fits into it.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, I don't,
guess that is masturbating. Damn
I would
it.
say I just don't. I think, well, because I'm non-binary, like I just think I'd be in the same bucket I'm in now of like getting constantly misgendered and like being like I don't think much would change about my existence except that people would misgender me the other direction. So I think
Fair.
a lot of what would change about me is I would just be totally fascinated with my new body, and it would be really cool to see how people treated me with a new body, because right now I know what it's like to be perceived as a woman, and I know what that feeling is like, and that's kind of I like some things about it and don't like some things about it. So I think it would be really cool, and I do definitely try to like mask my appearance up a lot, like masculinize my appearance a lot, but there's just only so masculine I can look. And so I think that like it would be cool to wake up and like be perceived as truly masculine for a little while. Like I would actually really love that experience. I think that would be kind of a neat way to move through the world for a little while.
Now you were talking, and I think this is a good segue to our next question. You were talking about depending on what you had, you would be putting things up or putting things in.
I didn't say that. Who said that?
That was definitely me. You know, like I remember being like a kid and like getting a boner for the first time and like ejaculating for the first time and like didn't have any good sex education. So I didn't have any fucking idea what was happening. I was just like, that felt fucking wild and I want to do it again, and like legitimately hurt myself trying to figure it out. So I imagine that's exactly what would happen again. I'd be on like a subreddit being like, and it's funny, I'm trying to remember because we definitely came up with 2 fake genital names back in the day. I'm trying to remember what they are to do a fun throwback joke, but I cannot remember it.
It was, I believe yours was Dry Bones.
Oh.
No, I don't think it was a bone. I think it was something else, but yeah, it was dry something.
It's 100% Dry Bone and Plurbus, because that's the name of the... Plurbus was mine.
Okay. So if I had a Plurbus, I would be on like the Plurbus subreddit with like people updating like, oh, I just did this to mine. It feels great. And like probably 80% would be good posts and probably 20% would be people just fucking like taking the piss and hurting other people's Plurbuses. It'd be terrible.
I like the assumption that you would have never encountered a Plurbus up to that point. That like,
well, if it's a third mystery genital.
Oh, if it's a mystery genital. Oh, I see. I see. I thought this was just like code names for genitals that currently exist. And I was like, wait.
No, okay. No.
I'm caught up.
I believe in the fiction of our podcast, the Plurbus was a genital that was not unlike, you know, the sticky hands you'd get from like the...
Yes.
That like 25-cent gacha comics. I believe that was. I believe that's kind of what it was.
Do not want a Plurbus. No, thank you.
Anyway, so... This used to be a really good segue, and now it's not because we... But...
Hey guys, it's a weird start so far, so just keep going.
This is a question that... Let me tell you, friends. I'm just going to read it. Does a penis get stuck inside while you have sex?
Is that the whole question?
That's it.
That's the whole question.
Okay. I want to say that this is not wild for me. Mm-hmm. Like I love that like this question.
Can I just interrupt you for a second, Angel? The fact that you said that is wild to me.
No, I said this is not wild. This is not wild for me.
Oh, I know. But I think saying that it's
any a wild that's not wild.
Oh, it's wild that it's not wild.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm very, very excited to see what the next couple words out of you are.
My inbox looks like this, and it, just because, again, we just talked about this, like people have terrible sex education, and so I don't know anything about the age of the person like asking this or the experience level of the person asking this, but like this is a thing that can happen in like the animal kingdom, and so if you're learning about sex from things like anime or porn or like watching Animal Planet or like a lot of the ways that people learn about sex and you've never experienced it, this is like a super valid question that comes from like most sex ed is fear-based. So it's like, here are all the horrible things that are going to happen to you and your junk if you do the sex. And like, just because nobody mentioned that this is one of them, who knows, right? So is my penis going to get stuck? Like the answer is no. Well, I guess it depends on where you put it, but I assume we're asking, is the penis going to get stuck inside a vagina or maybe like an asshole? And like, I'm going to very confidently and assuredly say that the answer to that is no.
Well,
Well, I like
have we
this.
ever heard of penis CaptivUS? Because that's the official name for what happens when a penis gets stuck inside somebody.
But how long is stuck?
So apparently it is ultra rare, like almost non-existent, and a lot of the time they think that it's possibly due to vaginismus and like involuntarily muscle spasming around something, and even then it doesn't last long because either one of the partners will, relax, at which point it will be fine. But I did look this up earlier because I had to know, just in case I came on and gave a completely wrong answer.
Like I just did. Well, I guess
I think it's so rare that you didn't give a wrong answer.
Okay, cool. Well, and because I was going to say, what happens when the people involved just relax was going to be my following question. If you hadn't like said that, was the muscle tension and like blood flow creating like a Chinese finger trap situation is definitely like a thing that can happen, but not like for a length of time where you need to be worried about like seeking medical attention.
Yeah. It basically says like, unless you, like calm down and it will last for moments at most. That I just really like the name penis CaptivUS.
I love that. It sounds like a Harry Potter spell.
Yeah, it really does. And I was also terrified when I looked it up, expecting to be told nothing, and then it just said penis CaptivUS in bold on Google, and I was like, yes. Like a new fear got added into my like fear library, and thankfully was removed quite quickly, but for a minute it kind of crawled back inside of me.
Now, you guys are also assuming that we're talking, like, this question just says, while you have sex. It doesn't really specify what you're having sex with. So it could, if you're having sex with a person made of cement, wet cement, and if you wait a little too long, it's going to get stuck in there. Some sort of like maybe a Jello mold.
Well, don't use super glue as lube. I think we can. There's some advice. That's our first advice of the episode.
I feel like also maybe you could get something stuck on you. Like if you used like let's say that you used like a cock ring or something for a cock ring that wasn't meant to be used for a cock ring. And then when your blood flow shifted, that could maybe like tourniquet. Like if you use a condom that's too tight and you get that like dick tourniquet thing, which is a real term and also not fun to think about. But like, no. It's not,
just keep slotting things into my fear library. Just keep going.
Well, I did a whole video on like condom fit. And that was one of the things where we were like going through and looking at like, why is it important to have a great condom that fits? And like the idea of like the tourniquet, like we just did like a collective shudder of like, so it is important. But again, that's another thing of like, in that case too, it would be temporary and it would be related to blood flow. I imagine you could make it worse if you were on some sort of erectile dysfunction medication, and then your blood flow was like, if your blood flow kept your boner hard and you were using some sort of thing that was not the right fit for you. But again, all of this would be temporary.
Yeah. So I think if you are somehow in this penis CaptivUS situation, just, be calm. Don't worry, don't panic. And, it will fade. This will be a funny story one day.
I can't imagine. I don't have a penis, but I can't imagine a situation that would make me feel less calm than discovering that my penis was CaptivUS. And
but the thing is, like the second I enter any sort of mortal fear or terror, let me tell you, my dick doesn't get harder. So I feel like you're in
instant boner killer.
Right, yeah. So I think the second like there's any sort of fear, if I'm like, if I am having sex with a block of cement that hasn't quite dried yet.
Okay, is there something you want to tell us here? Because this is weirdly specific and you keep repeating it. There was a time for you to admit this to me, and it was before we had a guest on, Dane.
This is a SpongeBob episode. The not the penis part, but the block of cement part. Like, like Squidward
Patrick gets stuck in one of SpongeBob's sponge holes.
No, I don't know if I saw that one. No, I'm serious. There's like an episode where Squidward he like rolls into wet cement and it like hardens around him and he ends up like stuck in wet cement and he gets mistaken for these like weird this like other sea creature and nobody knows it's Squidward in there. And like that's all I keep seeing in my head is Squidward's bulbousy nose stuck in the wet cement. And it looked like a penis on his face because it does. And so now that is the image that is conjured up, which is
so
a boner
this is something, again, a tangent here. And I'm not making a case for myself here, but have you ever seen the porn where they like encase people in cement?
No.
So it's like they get in sort of like like the magician boxes where you like your head and your legs are out and then they saw you in half kind of thing. It's kind of like that situation. So like a woman would be put in sort of like a doggy style position and then she gets cemented so that like her shoulders and sort of her, waist down are exposed, but the rest is like encased in cement. And there's nothing that like terrifies me more than that idea. Like imagine the sensation of just being trapped there like that.
That sounds horrible.
It sounds very bizarre. Also, I've never even heard of this.
Me either.
Which I think is testament to my porn searches. I think that's good. I think that's a good sign that it's never come up.
That it's never been a related video for you? Yeah, maybe.
The closest thing I can think of is like those vacuum beds. You guys have seen those.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess
vacuum pads?
Yeah, vacuum beds. It's like a latex or like a silicone,
like a PVC
latex
kind of
thing.
thing.
And you like get into it and they put like a little straw in your mouth and it covers you from head to toe and then they like use like a vacuum seal like to suck all the air out of it. And so you're like encased in this PVC, like sealed in like a vacuum seal, like chicken breast. and so I've always, when I've seen those ever, I've seen that in real life, and that made me, watching someone else do it made me feel claustrophobic. So I don't think I would respond well to adding the weight of cement into the equation.
I felt like a little quiver when you said, not like a sexy one, like a
like a
one.
Yeah.
When you said they put a straw in your mouth, because I don't want to just have a straw be my lifeline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That worries me.
I think the fear is part of what makes the activity sexy for people. It's definitely like an edge play, like kink thing of like, there's like usually you're doing this with someone else, you're not by yourself. And so you have to really trust the other person and you have to, the fact that it like kind of accelerates your anxiety and your heart rate, your body responds to arousal. I mean, arousal is arousal. And some people respond to anxiety arousal with like a genital arousal as well. And so I imagine that that's part of what is sexy, is that it's a little scary, but I did not personally find it to be sexy scary. I just found it to be no thank you, put it on my no list scary. But
yeah, absolutely.
So those people should not fuck cement because they will just get more aroused when they
I guess, yes.
Really, also, like,
ow.
do we all think that Dick Tourniquet would make a really good porn star name? Or is that just me?
It sounds like a punk band. Dick Tourniquet sounds like a garage punk, like Sex Pistols knockoff band.
You said something wonderful earlier that I was going to say sound like a really great band name, but everyone was talking and I forgot. It was something like, once we get over our new genitals or something. It was a very good line. I was like, that would be a great band. Oh, all right, we should move on.
Man, well, when you listen back and you remember, you'll have to let me know.
Yeah, I'll tweet you it.
So this is my favorite question that we've gotten, because
ever?
Not ever, but on this list. I mean, it's up there. It's definitely up there.
Okay.
The question is, what is the chance of getting pregnant from swallowing semen, then immediately French kissing your partner, and then them giving you oral sex and fingering you?
Oh, so there's definite fluid swaps. So why is that your favorite question?
Because the order of operations here, if this is a legitimate concern you have, just reverse the order?
But what if the order of operations has already occurred and now the questions are, oh crap, right? Like what if it's an oh shit question?
Okay, so this is so they've done it now, and then immediately you're like, oh fuck, oh beans.
Yeah, they can't get in their DeLorean and undo it, and so now they want to know: is this like a Plan B situation, or is this just
okay, that's fair.
So I'm gonna let you guys go first this time.
I feel like we've been talking a lot, Dan. You go.
So the way I see this is the main, I think the main contributing factor is whether or not you have swallowed. So if like, because the way it's happening is, it says swallowing semen. So then immediately French kissing your partner and then that partner performing oral sex on you while fingering you, I think the likelihood of you getting pregnant off that is slim. I'm not going to say impossible because, condoms are still only 99% effective. So there's always a chance. But the likelihood of residual semen staying in your mouth and transferred from a kiss, and then from that kiss, not only onto your like vulva or labia or clitoris or whatever, and then pushed with enough, juice to send it all the way inside to inseminate you while fingering, I think is a stretch.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree. I was going to say that's verbatim what my answer would have been.
Sperm doesn't really survive very long outside of the body, and even if you held the load in your mouth and decided to actively spit it down and really tried to do it that way, you'd probably be at the very far end of possibility. But if you're actually swallowing and you're not immediately going down, all these factors contribute to less and less possibility, less and less sperm that is alive or effective, etc. I would imagine, much like a CaptivUS penis, it's so unlikely that it's not something you need to worry about.
It makes me feel like the person who asked this question saw one of those Rube Goldberg machines. Do you know what those are?
Yes.
And was like, hey, what's the craziest fucking way we can get pregnant? And was like, this could be it.
It sounds like someone who, did you know that only 18 states require that if sex education is given, it has to be medically accurate?
That seems like a wild thing to exist, because it's what the fuck is the point of medically inaccurate sex?
There's
this belief. I'm not surprised at all.
There's this belief that if we scare the children, they will not do the sex. And yet 55% of people in the US have sex before they turn 18. And so we know that the fear doesn't keep us from doing the thing. It just makes us less likely to use protection. Makes you feel bad while you're doing it. Yes, it makes you feel scared. It gives you a lot of shame, and it makes you unsure about how to take care of your body and take care of your partners. And so this sounds like one of the questions that I would get if I was teaching sex ed to teenagers. Mm-hmm. It sounds like the let me think of all because teenagers really want to find loopholes. And so they want to find ways to do the sex that are as risk-free as possible, because they don't want to have these horrible outcomes that they're taught they're supposed to have, that are going to happen. And so it sounds like is this a really safe, it sounds like they actually maybe don't think that they can get pregnant this way. They just really want to make sure, if we're doing oral sex and there's lots of oral sex happening and there's body fluids exchanged in the oral sex, now your bigger concerns there are different STIs and things, but definitely this does not sound like a pregnancy risk scenario in any way. And if anybody is to ever get pregnant doing this set of things in this order, by all means, call me. I'll pay your hospital bills. There's just no way that that's going to happen. I would just be floored. I'm not really going to pay your hospital bills.
Especially not if you're in America.
Right. I was going to say, we can't afford that. But no, when you said, oh, that's so unlikely as to be not worth discussing. And if you're super, super, super worried about your pregnancy risk, if you did behavior and bodily fluids were exchanged and you just have doubt about your pregnancy risk, take a Plan B pill. There, you can get them on Amazon. And Plan B is not an abortion pill. It will not keep a pregnancy. It will not end a pregnancy. It'll keep a pregnancy from occurring in the first place. And so you have 3 days to take it after the exchange of the bodily fluids. And so if there's a piece of you that's I don't know if I trust those people on that Fuck Buddies podcast. And so maybe I'm still pretty nervous. Just order yourself a Plan B off the Amazon with the Prime shipping, or go get it out of some of the the drugstores have like vending machines for them and everything. So they're not hard to get these days. I don't know where you're at in the world, but different spaces will give them right to you even. So I would say just to be extra safe, if you're not sure, plan B it up.
And again, if you are really that worried about it, like do it backwards. Go down on her first, finger her first, then make
anyway.
out, and then it's like and then if this is the preferred way that you guys want to get off, great. Just you completely eliminate the risk if the last thing you do is the swallowing is like if semen is the last thing and has no opportunity to get anywhere near a vagina, you're not going to get pregnant.
100%. And I just like that order of operations anyway. Like, let's prioritize female pleasure, right? Like, I'm here for that.
We're huge supporters of that. So,
And oddly enough, I feel like this is a good sign of a male partner, because most dudes who once they get a blowjob,
they're done. They're tired.
The hands are wiped to be like, thanks a lot. So the fact that this guy is, one, making out with the partner who just swallowed his semen, and then proceeding to, reciprocate, good for you. But if this is a concern, flip it around.
Bingo. I mean, it's a low bar, but we'll give him a cookie.
Yeah, he's doing at least the bare minimum, which sadly is not very common.
Exactly.
So the next question is, and we've talked about this a lot, I feel like, lately, and we had a very wild recording schedule this past month, and I can't remember if this was on our Patreon podcast or not, so we're going to talk about it briefly here.
I'm 90% sure it was.
I think it was too. This is, should I go on a second date with a man who let me pay for my meal on the first date?
What is that question? Oh, sorry. I hate sounding judgy when people ask questions, but that one gets me. Why?
I think we've also sorry, just very quickly. I think we've also been a little judgy earlier on the questions. And I think a lot of that comes from the fact that I have no idea where they came from. You know what I mean? Like that, it just seems very funny because the list kind of, every question sounds so different that like, if I knew they were from like a teen, or if I knew they were from like the internet, I'd be able to treat them appropriately. So I think a lot of the funniness, just I have no idea where they're coming from.
I think it's okay that we have a sense of humor around them. I just get in that. I just try to be in the practice of like withholding judgment. But this one is as a dating question. Maybe it's just because I operate with a different set of like a different view of like the exchange with like finances and gender. Like I just so the question is, should I go on a second date? I say I'm making an assumption, but I'm assuming that do we assume it's a woman asking the question?
I would assume so, just based on like the exchange, like the indignation over the exchange, because I don't feel like that comes into play in any other circumstance, or at least as much.
So I guess it depends on. Okay. I guess let's talk about like some dating etiquette. I want to hear what you guys think. Does the person who asked for the date, is there an expectation that person will either foot the bill or arrange to like go Dutch, like that person will handle the emotional labor of the money conversation?
As I've mentioned before in previous iterations of this conversation, is yes, I feel like if I invite someone out for drinks or dinner or something, then I expect to pay. But I've also mentioned before in the past too, where I know that I date women, and I know that there are women who don't like the dollar sign hanging over their head as, ammunition at a later date or exchange, because I know there are some shitty dudes out there who will pull the card of being like, well, I paid for dinner, so,
yes,
like maybe you should come back to mine. So like, I understand that some women don't want that as something that could come up later. So if a woman insists or at least mentions that like she would like to split it or go Dutch on a date, I will usually insist once and like reassure and be like, thank you, I appreciate the offer, it is very nice of you, but I asked you out, I would love to pay, it is my treat tonight. If again she mentions that she's not comfortable with it, I will be like, okay, cool, then we'll split it, because I don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. And I know people have money insecurities as well. So I don't want to put anyone out or make anyone feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, I understand that there is also like the social, graces of the dance of the let me, no, let me kind of thing. So like, I understand that. I appreciate it if they're doing it to be polite, but I do sort of insist on a date, especially if I've asked you out, that I will take care of it.
Yeah, I think especially for the first date as well, like if you're inviting somebody out, I think like it makes sense. Like it's only fair really for you to cover it. Like as things progress and as it's less of a like, hey, let me take you out or meet me here and it's more collaborative, then it can drop off a bit. But I definitely think first date especially. Um
That was all really insightful stuff. And I agree completely. I'm thinking too, I wish people did a better job just communicating with each other.
mhm.
Like, I wish that it was like, hey, can I take you to dinner is different than would you like to have dinner with me? Right. Like,
Yeah, very true.
can I take you to dinner? If somebody said to me, can I take you to dinner? And then handed me the bill, that would probably irk me a little bit because can I
Mhm.
take you to dinner implies that they want to buy me dinner. But like it seems like a very direct invitation that they would like to take me out. But if they said, hey, would you like to have dinner with me? And then when the bill came, there was like a who's doing this sort of dance, that might be like, I might not have expected it, but I think it would be I would be like a lot less weirded out or like feel confronted by it. But I date queer people too. And so queer dating, like the rules are maybe a little bit different. Maybe there is a little bit more clear, like maybe not. I don't know. I don't like to be put in a situation where I don't know what's going to happen. And so I do tend to like, I try to make sure that if I'm saying yes to a first date, I've got enough money to like cover my stuff, or whatever.
Mhm.
Or, if somebody's like, I wait for them to say it's on me before I assume it's not, or whatever. It's that we're
Mhm.
not going Dutch. But if it was like, if it wasn't set up front and it was sort of ambiguous, and then when the bill came, the person got up and left to go to the bathroom and so sort of left you with the bill and you made the choice to pay. I want to know how that conversation went. Did you say like, hey, do you want to go Dutch? And the person was like, no. Then again, I don't know if I would want to go back out with that person just because that seems like a weird, presumptuous, like, you know what I mean? That they just
Mhm.
assumed you were paying. But if you just paid it and they let it happen, it sounds like, is it passive aggressive that you paid it? Like if you didn't want to pay the bill or if you didn't want to buy their meal and you were only comfortable, like I guess I don't know enough about like what went down to
Mhm.
assume that it just would be completely deal breakery for a second date.
So the things that stuck out to me are the terminology of who let me pay for my meal. So let me implies to me that like they offered, and my meal implies that it's only like, kind of their portion. That's like if you offer and someone's like, "Oh, sure, thank you." I don't think you can turn around and be pissed off. Yeah, I get that sometimes the offer is like not necessarily genuine, but it's like I don't think you should ever then be annoyed if you do offer and someone takes you seriously on it.
Yeah.
But like I said in my example, like again, if I will never try to supersede someone's desire with what I want to do, in the sense is why I will insist only once, because like we live in a time where like we should respect, like hopefully that if someone is saying something that they're being honest and they're not playing some like weird gender role like bullshit game of being like, oh, it's actually my role as the woman to be like, oh, let me pay, and then it's your role as the man to be like, no, no, no. And I don't, I feel like that might have happened in this situation where she
Yes.
kept insisting, being like, no, please, please let me, and the guy was like, all right, like if you want to, because like I would never tell someone, especially a woman, that like they can't do something or have some sort of like say over how something goes down.
See, I think it was like I'm imagining a scenario where there was one offer to pay, and instead of doing the like come back and say no, let me get it, the person
Mhm.
just let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the scenario. I'm assuming that, and I don't know if it's so. Like we have to think about things like cultural influences, like where are they at in the world,
Mhm.
and like certain like different cultural communities handle ideas about like what's macho and feminine in different ways, and like so there are like expected rules of engagement. And so, I'm making some assumptions, but a scenario where this question seems reasonable to me is a scenario where there are some sort of expectations about what dating looks like. And like when I was growing up, I grew up in a very religious conservative environment where if I was going out, there was an expectation that like a man would pay for things. And so I might offer and say, oh, I can get mine, to be nice. But that passive aggressiveness was part of like respectability culture.
Mhm.
And then there was an expectation that the man would come back and say, no, 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 I've got it. And so if I offered once and then the man said, okay, and then I ended up paying, again, I don't know if that would be like a deal breaker for me because I did offer, but I do think like I might notice it or have at the time. And so I can imagine a scenario where it would definitely catch someone off guard to like offer to pay and then be like, quote unquote, like they let you pay. Like I can imagine a scenario where that's happening and where the person feels a little like that was an unexpected exchange. But I guess to me, that unless they were otherwise also a jerk or they were like a bigot or they were like, unless they were some other deal breaker, to me, I don't see that as a deal breaker. But I mean, I guess I can't make deal breaker decisions for other people. I just know like if someone was coming to me, I would say like, don't lose out on a great person because they took you at your word. If anything, that's a person who's a straight shooter. That's a person who's a direct communicator. Have you guys ever heard of the concept of like ask culture and guess culture? Yeah. And so you've got it. What it sounds like to me is you've got one person who's ask culture and one person who's guess culture. And if it's going to be a large incompatibility for you that like that guest culture isn't there, maybe you have to think about that. But I would do a second date and see how that went to feel it out. Like, is 100%. It a compatibility? Yeah. So if anything, it seems like a second date for science. Like just do the experiment again. Yes.
Yeah. Cause that's the thing. I feel like it's not like, again, as you say, it's hard to say what deal breakers are for other people. Everyone has their own limits. I think like objectively, this doesn't seem like a terrible thing. It sounds like you've offered and it's like, they took you at your word. They were straight up. And also I guess like, yeah, it could be bad, could be not bad. I don't think it's a deal breaker. I think, as you said, for science, do a second date, see how that goes, figure out if those incompatibilities stretch further or whether it was just like a one-time miscommunication, because again, like there's a number of reasons why you might not want to take the bill. Like maybe it ended up being a little bit more expensive than you realize and someone offered and you were like relieved, or maybe you didn't want to seem pushy and like shitty, or, there's a million different things. So go out again, unless there are other red flags. And
I did have, this makes me think of a story. This is like a little personal story. I did have a partner one time, and this was a longer term partner who had like said that they were going to take me on a trip. And so they planned this whole trip and then took me on the trip. And then I think didn't expect things to be as expensive when we got there. And so started asking me to like pay for half the trip once we got there.
Oh no.
And that was not, because everything was a surprise. So until we got where we were going, and it was like an out of town thing and it was like multi-day. And so I didn't have the chance to like financially prepare to be on a trip. And so
or even I guess make the choices on what to do in the trip. Like,
yeah, the whole thing. And so I loved that they took initiative and I loved that they like planned this thing. And I don't think I think they had intended to take care of everything and then it just snuck up on them. And so I think they like wanted to do this nice thing. And then instead they were like wanting to go Dutch like for most of it. And I remember being really caught off guard by that because I was like, oh, like this is the way that it got worded was like, let me take you to do this thing and let me do this nice thing for you. And I was like, just barely starting like my grad school work at the time. And so I was like, poor grad student, and so it worked out and it was fine. But I remember that scenario feeling a little like if this was earlier in the relationship, this might have signaled some incompatibility because of the lack of like conversation around the financial burden that a long trip can hold for people. But that's different than like one dinner, one night. And a dinner can be expensive, and we want to be aware of people's financial limitations. But that it makes me think of that story of like kind of being stuck in this out of town space and the bill arriving and then being like, hey, can we go Dutch? And I'm like, sure.
Yeah, that sucks because you're like literally trapped. You're not home.
Yeah,
you're like,
yes. Yeah, like I guess we can. So yeah, there was definitely some conversations around it after we got back from our trip.
Yeah. That's fair.
Let's squeeze in one more question because I think this is a spicy question of the episode. A friend of mine asked me to make her pregnant. She wants to raise a child alone. I accepted, and we kind of scheduled the thing. How should I handle the act, not to make things weird afterwards? Should we make love or just the minimum?
I'll take this one because I threw the last one on you, Dan. So, firstly, instead of asking us, ask them.
Right out of my mouth, you took those words. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Like we say this a million times on the podcast, and we'll say it a million times more. Communication is key. And like already I can, maybe it's just me reading into the text, but we kind of scheduled the thing. That doesn't sound like communication's happening at all. You have scheduled it or you haven't. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't that be a horrible miscommunication?
Right? And like on top of that, it's like, I feel like, you know, communication is key no matter what. But like in a situation like this where it's like you're getting somebody pregnant and they're going to raise your child alone. It's like that alone, if you haven't really communicated the parameters there, is a recipe for fucking disaster, let alone the actual, you know, act. But I would 100% talk to them and see what they're comfortable with, because like, you know, it sounds kind of transactional at this point, and it's like, you know, it's their body, it's your body. You guys are the ones who should be setting these parameters, right? Like I could say anything and it could be totally against what they want. So gotta go talk to them.
I like to tell people that consent is not like a contract, but in this particular case, this is a situation that actually requires some paperwork.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
like
first.
yeah. And so I think that like when you're having the very necessary contract negotiations that you need to have to make this a viable situation for everyone involved, I think it's great that you want to help your friend out. And I think it's, you know, having a really thorough level conversations many times over a length of time to make sure that we all know what we're saying yes to, and getting things in writing for sure. And even then expecting to like have changes of heart and mind as you go through it, because this is a very emotional thing. I think that like, if you're asking for advice on whether or not the transaction should be transactional or should be loving, my thing that I would ask you to consider is what kind of feelings are you inviting in? Mm-hmm. And so if you're considering a more romantic transaction, which is totally within everybody's rights to consider that this is a very emotional situation to be in the first place. And if that's okay with you, and if you're okay with inviting those feelings, like sex does things to our hormones, and pregnancy will do things to hormones. And so there is a possibility that you're already going to be in an emotionally sticky situation. And so having a more romantic and like loving interaction may just, there will be additional emotional things to consider. So that when you're having the discussion with them, not us, that is something to consider, is what level of emotionality do we want? Do we want something that feels kind of cold and transactional, or do we want, like, are we a warm and loving friendship? And is that something we want to invite in?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a hard, I mean, it's a difficult question, but like, there are also things to consider in terms of like, what kind of friend is this? Is this, you know, someone you chat with at work? Is this someone that you hang out with regularly? Is this, you know, like a friend of a friend? There's a bunch of things you need to sort of like figure out, because I can think of like 3 different female friends that, you know, could ask this of me, and I have a very different relationship with all 3 of them. And you also have to understand of the fact of like, pregnancy doesn't just happen. Sometimes it takes more than one try. So you also have to understand that like, this might not be a one-time situation, because you might get lucky. And yes, you know, maybe you just have to have sex once and that works and she gets pregnant after that one time. But like, ask, you know, any couple that's tried to have kids, sometimes it's not that easy. So you also have to understand or at least negotiate of being like, well, is this a one-time thing that we're going to try once, and if it works, hooray, and we move on? Or is this are we entering into a relationship of, we're going to do this in however many different ways and on whatever schedule that we need to do it in order for this to be successful for you? It could get messy otherwise.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's also they have to talk about, like, discuss like what happens if someone when someone catches feelings and those aren't reciprocated, like what does that look like? Because even if it's like 1 or 2 times of the sex before the pregnancy happens, there's a very high probability that you guys will not be on the same page throughout the whole process, like emotionally speaking. And
or
so
even like when the baby's born, right? Like,
yeah, all of it. Like,
especially if you're friends and you have to see this kid and know that it's yours. Like,
oh yeah, like, so what do you do? There has to be open communication on like what happens when someone will feel things, and those feelings will need to be discussed. And so I know the heart behind this question is, are we keeping it cold or are we letting it be warm? I think it doesn't matter. Let's say you go with the cold route. It doesn't matter how icy cold the sex is. I don't think it's possible to get through this whole scenario without exchanges of emotion here. And so I think if we're trying to avoid exchanges of emotion, just assume that it's going to be wildly unexpected and they're going to catch you off guard. And like, what is your game plan for when that happens?
and I think like a few things to consider is like, one, if you are worried that things are going to get weird afterwards, maybe don't do this, right? If that's a big concern for you, like, don't do it. Maybe. Secondly, there's a world of different actions between making love and the minimum. On top of that, someone's minimum is not everyone else's minimum. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know what he has in mind, but like some minimums are really bad. So
we're also ignoring the obvious solution here, where you don't have to have sex. You just come in her mouth, you make out with her, and you just spit it in there. Just
yes. Back to the first question, and it came full circle. What a beautiful way to wrap that up.
Right? It's the easiest way to do it. Now, Angel, I don't know if you're in a rush to get out of here or not, but at the end of the episode, we like to peruse online dating and take a look at Tinders and profiles and Hinge profiles. Would you like to join us for that?
That sounds like fun. I mean, I can't visualize anything, so you'll have to walk me through it. But yes.
Oh, it's okay. We tend to specifically only deal with the written text because we don't like to, mock anyone's physical appearance.
Yeah, like it's just pure bios, and like bios are something that are definitely under your control,
Yes, yes, and people should really take more time with them.
Oh, they really fucking should. And you know what? They regularly don't.
Which is why it's fun for us. I'm in.
100%.
So I'm going to start us off because I think this ties in really well for our last question. This is Sarah. She's 29, and her profile just says ovulating.
Oh, that's it.
So,
damn, you know what? 10 out of 10 for humor. As a dating profile, maybe a 2.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay. Sarah is a very clear broadcaster and is making sure that she gets what she wants. I feel like Sarah was hacked. I feel like Sarah's little brother found her dating website and is like, haha, I'm on to you. Like, I don't know. This just feels like I can't imagine that that is a sincere effort.
You got to give it a rating.
Yes, out of 10.
Yeah.
And 10 is the best dating profile ever. And what is it, like 0?
You can go into the minuses. We regularly do.
Oh, yeah. This is like a solid 0. Like, I can't. That's how much effort Sarah put in. So that's the rating she gets.
I like it. All right. Well, this is Nicola. Environmental visual communicator, tree planter, artist, new to the city and need to explore. God, this bio sucks.
Is that the whole bio?
Yep. And that was her saying it sucked, not me.
Oh, I was like, wow, that was such a strong reaction.
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. That's her. That's her text, not me at all.
God, this bio sucks. I don't think you should. You know how there's like a rule with public speaking where you shouldn't tell the audience you're nervous? Mm-hmm. Like, I think that we've made this faux pas here a little bit. Like, don't tell people it sucks. Let them come to that conclusion on their own.
100%. It's like, it's so sad because it's not the worst. As we just saw, it's a little better than ovulating.
It is a little better than that.
But like, it's such a weird thing to put in there because 1, it's like, if it sucks, change it, right? Like, you have the power here. And 2, it's weirdly like you're just like demeaning yourself already. You're talking yourself down.
I get that self-deprecation is like humor, but this is not landing.
No.
I give it like a 3.
Okay.
I'm going to do the same thing. I think a 3 is
generous.
Yeah.
Yeah. It probably would have been a 2, but like, there's just like that pity one from that last line where I'm like, yeah.
Oh, bless your heart. At least you're self-aware.
Yeah.
This is Brenna. Dating me is like ordering 10 chicken wings, but getting 11.
Ooh,
I love it.
I like that a
That's a
lot.
big promise to make, Brenna.
Yeah,
See,
one great thing. 2, great humor. 3, she likes chicken wings.
Yeah.
I think it's a tall order to live up to, though.
I don't know.
That's
I
the
mean,
thing.
that's okay. Is it though? I mean, how much I understand we like chicken wings, but chicken wings aren't like bliss. Like that's a really appropriate level of joy to set up if you know you're a delight. Like
Yeah,
you
you know
would
what?
be
Yeah.
I'm in. I give Brenna like an 8 for that. That's cute and funny and playful and doesn't take herself too seriously, but is like, I expect you, I am a delight and I'm gonna tell you about it. And like I would swipe, is it right? I would swipe right
Mhm.
on Brenna.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got the confidence. It's got the humor. It's great. I love it. I'm gonna give it an 8 as well.
I'm going to give it a 9.
Ooh, Dane
And
does really love chicken wings, so
I fucking love chicken wings, but I'm
They're
not
very
giving it a
good.
10 because there's that one that 10% chance that she set herself up for failure.
That she's not a delight.
Yeah,
She tanks the first date.
yeah.
Okay.
this is Rafi, and it is a lady. A group of ferrets is called a business. So when someone says they're taking care of business, they're really just taking care of a bunch of ferrets.
It's an easy 10 for me.
And she actually went to my university as well, even though she was found over here. So there you go, point for that. That's the kind of shit they taught us.
I love it. It's very endearing. It's very funny and endearing. It's I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah, I'm also, I think I'm going to do 9 just because I get the feeling they really love animals too, and I like that. It's just great. 9.
Yeah, it's
All
an
right.
easy 10 for me. I don't need anything more than that.
It's very adorable. So
This is Andrea. I want someone to take me on a date that they put thought and effort into, and I want it to be sweet and romantic. I want to sit across from them in awe of how great and charming they are. I want them to kiss me and make me feel dizzy. But this is Tinder, so I'd appreciate if you don't open with sit on my face. Smiley face.
11. Like that is the most relatable, and I don't know if I'm her target audience, but that is the most relatable like dating profile ever. I'm gonna put exactly what I want, but please just don't be a creep. And like I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, I'm giving it a 10 as well because it. At first, I was like, if without the punchline at the end there, I would have cringed really hard.
Oh, yeah,
I would
I
have
was
hated
cringing, and then the punchline won me over.
Yeah, I was ready to be like, wow, this person seems like, a lot. And then I was like, oh, a lot of humor.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a 10.
Yeah. Well, especially because it's Tinder. Like on a different app, that the sincerity of the first part, like she had us in the first half. Like I think that belongs somewhere else, and so that's why I was a little like, oh, I don't know if that's a Tinder profile, but like that closer, that she knows exactly what her audience is. Like,
I have Helen. 3 things I'm proud of being me. I do not play. I give my best, and when I choose you, it's only you. Sweet as sugar, hard as ice. Hurt me once, I'll kill you twice. Swipe left if you're looking for fun.
oh no,
Not even sex. Fun.
I assume that's what they mean, but
Yeah. I know
it
this.
doesn't come off well.
wait, no, I thought swipe left meant you didn't want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, say no if you want fun.
Say no to me if you want something fun, because I am not fun. I am a ferret. I am serious business. I'm serious business. Oh, that is well, okay. There are definitely people out there looking for that kind of energy in their exchange. And so it sounds like she knows exactly who like she's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet she gets exactly the type of interactions that she's like summoning with that. So for accuracy, I'm going to give it like a 7.
Mm-hmm.
I
But
think it's
overall-
very deliberate. Overall, it's very alarming and jarring. And,
Yeah.
and so
There we
I was very freaked out by that, but I think that was the point.
I think it, like, part of me loves that this person has their own personalized murder rhyme. You know? Like,
yes.
they have to have that tattooed on them somewhere, right? Sweet as sugar, hard as ice, hurt me once, I'll kill you twice. That's wonderful and absolutely terrifying. And as someone who does like fun, I feel like this is a 3.
Wow, that's generous. I'm giving this a 0.
Oh, look
I
at
wouldn't go
that.
near this whole situation if you paid me to.
See, I appreciate the murder rhyme, but from a safe distance.
Yeah,
See,
no.
I get like a very intense, like almost dominatrixy type of vibe from it. Like I like some people are really into like erotic humiliation.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I said, I feel like she knows who's out there looking for it. And so I think that's why she gets extra points for like just going balls out and like
I think Doms are
committing.
more fun than this, though.
Oh,
Like,
it's a very specific type of thing. I'm not saying like all, not all DOMs. I'm saying like there's a very specific market for what she is selling, and
Mm-hmm.
she seems to have identified. I hope I'm giving her a lot of credit. I really
you,
hope
I
that
hey,
she
I
is
appreciate it. And the thing is, like, one of the most like common complaints we have about things is that like you don't show your personality, and like I guess that we don't know what you're looking for necessarily. And to her credit, we get both those things.
Yes, we
So
do.
hence the 3.
all
I
right.
love it.
This is my last one. This is Sienna. Queer, social work student. Bet I can outdrink you. Trying to get railed, but a nice date would be good too.
I like that.
I find that to be a very middle of the road, like very straightforward. Not that's like a 5 for me.
I like just the straightforwardness. I feel like a lot of people tend to dance around like sex on like their profiles. So
Yeah.
the fact that they're like able to be straight up about it to a degree is fun. So like 7.
I'm gonna split the difference and go 6 because I feel like I agree with both of you.
I
Yeah.
like
All
that.
right. Hell yeah.
I think it's a good point. The like being straightforward about sex. And so that didn't put me off. It just I didn't yeah, I don't know. I wasn't impressed.
That's cool. Yeah, it's a little bland, but
Yeah. But hey,
this
you
one
know what she's asking for.
exactly right, and I appreciate that. Now this one is not bland. This is Ellie, and this is going to be my last one. Definitely not 3 raccoons in a trench coat. Big serial killer energy. Almost always planning my next nap. I'm not a bad person. I just don't care about your travel stories.
Ugh, I made a face. I literally cringed.
Yeah, I'm probably making the same face you are.
Ugh, like a 2, I guess. I feel
It
like
lost me after the first line for sure.
yeah. Ugh,
But
maybe a
here's the
2 is too
thing:
high.
serial killer energy. I'm kind of for because 9 times out of 10, they're pretty charismatic.
Yeah,
I mean, I
but
guess
the thing is, I bet you that's not what she means.
Yeah, I was gonna say
guess it
she's
also
not like I'm
depends.
charming like Ted Bundy. Like
Yeah, because if
Yeah.
you're charming, you would know that saying that isn't charming.
exactly.
I mean, I guess the thing is, it's like I guess you can go one way. It's like, are you serial killer energy? Are you charming like Ted Bundy? Or are you making a nipple vest like Ed Gaines? So I guess yeah. Okay, I retract my statement. I'm gonna give this a 0.
Yeah, like even just like I don't care about your travel stories. It's like that's
It's
such a
rude.
vague thing to hate because like not all travel stories are equal. You know what I mean?
Right?
That's like imagine just being like, oh, I was, and just like, oh, shut up. It's like, what else do you
Yeah.
not care about? That just seems like you are in fact a bad person because like a travel story is no different to what didn't work today story to a like here's the dog I saw at the park story.
Okay, I'm doing a 0 too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm changing my answer.
0.
Well, thank you very much, friends, and thank you, Angel, for joining us today. It has been a pleasure. We love doing this, and it's even more fun when we have an extra special guest who is as fun as you.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
that's
seriously.
nice. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Hey, anytime.
Niall and I will be doing a recurring column on Tickle.life in which we will be doing much the same of what we usually do and answering sex and dating questions. So if you want to, have something in writing instead of on audio, you can submit your questions to Tickle.life. But I don't know how much we haven't really, put into to fine print everything. So I don't know if you have more to share with everyone.
No, yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. That's the column. I will be involved a little bit. Just helping with if there's like any kind of like accuracy situation that like I can gently like assist with. Like I will be helping with that. But I mean, you guys are like a pretty insightful bunch, and it's a lot of fun. And so I don't know how much I get to like commentate on things. We haven't, again, it hasn't like all been totally finalized, but I know that I get to be like involved a little bit, which I was really excited about. I was like, please sign me up. So I'm looking forward to the column. I'm looking forward to doing whatever I can to be helpful and be a good resource to you all and to everybody reading. And so, but yeah, please, if you're listening, please write in and let Danielle like answer your questions so I can read their amazing answers.
Oh yeah. I'm excited you're going to be working with us.
Yeah, that's exciting. If you have a question for us or would like to support the show, head on over to fbuddiespodcast.com. You can click on either the contact form to shoot us a message or any of our social media, or you can jump on over to our Patreon page and sign up there to help support the show. If you donate with the two higher tiers, you get a free or an extra bonus content episode every month called Pillow Talk.
Thank you, Josh Eagle and the Harvest Cities, for their song Paper Stars.
All right, now hit us with some bad sex writing.
So this one's short. It's snappy. It's brief, and you know what? It weirdly fits into what we did today. So it's a screenshot of the article, the title of an article that's called 4 Exercises That'll Make Your Vagina So Tight It Becomes a Dick Guillotine.
Sorry. Sorry. I wasn't ready. Sorry.
No one's ready for that.
Well, one more word for the fear vocabulary.
Yep, another addition to that.
My name is Dave Miller.
And I'm Niall Spain.
And I'm Angel Russell.
And we've been your fuck buddies.